You know the ancient Chinese truism, may you be born in interesting times. Well, apparently it's neither ancient nor Chinese. It's relatively modern and American. But of our lives today, it is profoundly and painfully true. We are living in times that are way too interesting. So much is challenging, so much is different. But at the same time, things profound and wonderful emerged as the months go by. And for all these days' interestingness, so much of what is good and powerful and positive still manages to break through the strangeness and just goes on and can't be stopped. In spite of the pandemic, in spite of the ups and downs of economy and climate change and wearing masks, and our politics getting harshly redder and bluer. But the basic good energy of life just can't be stopped. Within my own small world of family and friends, as I would imagine within yours as well, babies are still being born. I have a new little cousin, Rocco Weiner, who's the cutest thing. And I know some of you are soon to give birth as well. People are falling in love. Brand new careers are still indeed taking off. Weddings are taking place. Flowers burst forth in the spring and the summer, and the leaves are now changing, getting ready to fall. And in our Jewish world, I marvel at our Reformed Jewish movement as its ability to change and to keep reforming moves on. It keeps evolving as the world evolves. Just as Judaism itself has forever kept moving. And though some might try to portray Judaism as this static thing frozen in time, it is anything but. The Torah's brilliance is that its core teachings can be meaningfully lived in the year 2020 as they were differently lived 500 years ago and differently again 1,000 years ago. The same core messages, the same words, alive and changing. That's how 25 Kol Ami students can get on a plane to fly thousands of miles away to Central America to fulfill the ancient mitzvah of Tikkun Olam. That's why Shira takes us to Black Lives Matter rallies and fills a bus with people of all ages and religions and takes them to the American South to learn the painful realities of the civil rights movement. Because the Torah teaches us that we don't stand idly by while our neighbor's blood is being shed. Think of it, you're sitting in your living rooms, fulfilling the Torah's age-old requirements of Yom Kippur, using technology that didn't exist 10 years ago. If our tradition did not change and adapt so beautifully, it would have ceased to exist in ancient times. It would be gone, long gone. And so that's why every so often we hear from this bima of an adaptation, an evolution, a realization that helps us embrace and keep a pace of the beautiful reality of who we are, who our community is now, and who we are becoming. In recent years, we've found in ancient words of Torah new abilities to embrace our LGBTQ friends and members, to better embrace our members of color with so much work still left to be done, new understandings of how those of us of different abilities can more meaningfully be part of our community. We grow in our understanding of our relationship to Israel. The words of Torah are unchanged and eternal, but our ability to learn from them is forever infinite. One of the more joyous areas of Jewish life that's positively evolved has been the sharing of this sacred community with our many families that have non-Jewish family members, in particular with the celebration of weddings, but all our celebrations. On many occasions when parents have come to me to talk about an upcoming wedding of their child, asking if I would meet with those young adults, they sometimes look back and share horror stories of their own interfaith weddings. Sometimes absolutely unable, impossible to find a rabbi to even talk to. Stories of their own rabbis who simply refuse to even meet with them. Those of you who met with rabbis only to be berated for marrying somebody who wasn't Jewish. One of our very active and wonderful families here, a couple who was married decades ago, told me of going to their family rabbi years ago to share their story of falling in love and wanting to explore the possibilities. The rabbi was a good family friend. With open minds, they went into his office, sat down, and all he said was, "A good Jew would never marry out of the faith." We all have stories of relatives, sometimes parents, who refused to come to our weddings and sometimes didn't speak to us for years. There were those years when the common response from the synagogue was, "No, we will not let you celebrate your interfaith wedding here, but we'd love to have you come and be members just the same." Interfaith couples would often say, "It seemed like Judaism was slamming the door in our faces on our wedding day, but the next day would be perfectly happy to accept our membership dues." Well, our synagogue, though far from perfect, has come a long way. I will admit that many years ago, when parents came to me with the exciting news that a child was engaged, quite instinctually, my first question would be, "Is he Jewish? Is she Jewish?" And at the time, it was said without awkwardness or embarrassment. Years later, and I don't know exactly when it happened, my instincts have evolved, and now my first and most natural question is, "Mazel tov, do you like him? Do you like her? Has your child found a good person who will be good to them?" Because that's what's most important. And if they're Jewish as well as being a good person, well, then that's, of course, wonderful too. Well, it's Yom Kippur, so let me confess something about the weddings I have done over the years. Let me tell you a little bit about my own evolution in the marriages that I've performed. I was actually going to call this sermon Marital Confessions of a Rabbi, but I thought that might get your attention, but that would be misleading since the marriages I'm talking about are yours, not my own. Many years ago, I did not perform interfaith marriages. It was the norm of the time. I would make sure that my high school students knew that so that when they grew up, they wouldn't be surprised or disappointed when I would not officiate at their weddings. Most students remembered that and wouldn't ask me to officiate. And on occasion, it would happen that someone would even invite me to come to their wedding as a guest, as a friend. Still, every once in a while, I'd hear, "You've been my rabbi all these years, and now this most important day in my life is about to happen, and you won't be there for me." It was painful for me as well as them. But I was being consistent with the practice of the times. I was doing what I had been taught to do and what made sense to me at the time. Now, of course, they fell in love with whoever they wanted to, whoever they were going to naturally fall in love with, believe it or not, without asking my permission. I had to come to the painful realization that I had no control over those things, that we rabbis don't have that kind of power. You know, most of us live in this world where we've raised our children to befriend all types of people, to go to friend with, and to live amongst all different types of people. So it's rather unreasonable for us to say, "But just don't fall in love." And for many years, I said no. I tried to explain myself fully and kindly why I would not officiate at a wedding. And then about 20 years ago, I asked myself the big question. To me, it was a big question. All of those times of saying no and not officiating at an interfaith wedding, what had I accomplished? And the truth is, I didn't have much to show for it, except that there were some young people who then ended their relationship with the synagogue. Others felt Judaism had abandoned them at one of the happiest moments of their lives. My saying no damaged some very close friendships and family relationships. I probably discouraged the non-Jewish partner from ever someday considering conversion. I really couldn't think of anything fruitful that had come of it. I'm pretty sure that no one ever said, "Gee, Rabbi, you're right. I'm going to end this relationship right now and not marry this person I love." I'm quite sure that there was never a time when someone got down on one knee and proposed where the response was, I'd like to. But years ago in confirmation class, I promised the rabbi I wouldn't marry somebody who isn't Jewish, so keep the ring. That never happened. The newly ordained me of 1984 would probably be very shocked to hear me saying these words. But the me here in 2020 acknowledges and welcomes with pride and enthusiasm all of our families and all of their configurations, Jewish, non-Jewish family members who are joining us for this amazing Jewish journey. We've come so far in opening up our eyes and hearts to the gift that our non-Jewish family members bring us. Because Kol Ami is truthfully a more joyful, a more aware, a more enriched community because of your presence. And if at a wedding, the couple is loving, mature, mutually respectful, has chosen to have a Jewish wedding, sought out a rabbi, and is going to participate in Jewish life, then I am humbled and thrilled and honored to be with you under the chuppah. So why am I talking about this today? Having enjoyed all of these interfaith marriages for many years, because I realize that I haven't said it enough out loud. Not enough people know how welcome they are. I haven't written about it often enough, sharing with you what an honor and a joy it is. This Yom Kippur is a day on which we acknowledge out loud our failings, as well as being a day on which we recognize the good things for which we are so grateful. So here goes. Al chet shechatati. For the sins we committed by not expressing as often and fully as possible how blessed we are with all of our Kol Ami families and all of your family members. For the sin we have committed by not letting our non-Jewish members know how fully welcome you are in all of our ceremonies, in all of our celebrations. For the sin of not being clear that we are overjoyed to officiate at the weddings of all of our members who wish to create Jewish homes. We welcome their partners, Jewish or not. And on this Yom Kippur, we acknowledge those things for which we are grateful. We are grateful for the privilege of watching your children grow and enjoying their presence in our classrooms and our celebrations. We're grateful for the many of you, Jewish and non-Jewish, who with full pride and love have sweetly passed down the Torah through the generations at bar and bat mitzvah, down to your own children and grandchildren. We're grateful for the many times we've been given the opportunity to welcome your in-laws and relatives, hoping they feel fully welcome and embraced in all of our Jewish gatherings and celebrations. So in a year marked by so much division and separateness, may we find all the more joy in our moments of unity, our coming together and celebration. As Rabbi Rick Jacobs pointed out, this welcoming we do, he said, we aren't erasing boundaries, we're removing barriers. We aren't diluting Judaism, we're sharing it. Yes, these are interesting times, but in spite of all the craziness, let's keep having babies, celebrating weddings, writing new Torahs, conquering old hatreds, together repairing and celebrating our world. Amen.